I was actually told to talk about personal branding. And I said, you know what, turn it into professional branding, because we Indians are a little shy when it comes to personal branding. Can I have a show of hands? How many of you out here feel a little embarrassed about selling yourself, about branding yourself? Quite a few. I mean, I'll raise my hand myself. It is recognized as an Asian trait, as opposed to the Americans who absolutely feel confident about talking about how good they are without any embarrassment. But branding yourself is not about bragging. You know, you have an important job. You do something great. Do you feel that the work that you do can be of help, can be of use to others? That is what branding yourself is about. You know, you do something important. If you can help others, would you like to? Would you like to help more than 2 people in your office? Would you like to help 20 people, 200 people, 2,000 people? I suggest that you look at branding yourself from that point of view. I mean, let me give you an example. Suppose there is a person whose life's ambition is to be known as a funny person. That's not a bad ambition. A lot of comedians have made a name for themselves. So here is a person who wants to be known as a funny person. So what do you expect him to do? Go around saying, hey, I am a funny person? Yes or no? Crack some jokes. You expect him to crack some jokes. You don't expect him to wear a t-shirt saying, hey, I am a funny person. If he cracks great jokes, people will say, hey, he's a funny person. And for every 100 jokes that he cracks, and I can say that from experience, he'll crack 1 great joke, 10 okay jokes, and the balance 89, everyone will be saying, hey, what a PJ, I want to hit you. But branding is about what others think of you. It's a stimulus and response game. You provide the stimulus, others are going to respond. Right? Whether it's in your office, whether it's in any field, you are the one who's providing the stimulus. And except for one person in this world, which is your mom, who, I mean, irrespective of the stimulus, your mom is going to say, hey, you're the greatest. Irrespective of that, your brand, how others perceive you, is absolutely dependent on how you control the stimulus that you provide to the others. Now, I have put a small chart out here. The x-axis is the awareness axis and the y-axis is the respect axis. So your brand is a function of these 2 things, very broadly speaking. How many people, the strength of your brand. Now, you can choose where you want to play. You want to play, you have an option. You want to be a niche brand. I don't want to be known by thousands and millions of people. Only a few people know me. Let's say only 100 people in my office know me. You're at this level. But where are you on the respect axis? Are you above the 45-degree line? If you're above this, which means few people know you, but those who know you have very high respect for you. But you're below this line, that means that you're below normal in terms of the respect that you get from the others. Now, you can choose to play in this space, or you can choose to play in this space, in which large number of people you want to impact, a large number of people you want recognition from, a large number of people you want respect from. I mean, that's your choice. And whatever I'm going to talk about now is irrespective of which space you want to play in. Let me give some examples. I don't want a political discussion out here, okay? How many of you have voter cards? Not bad, not bad. Okay, here you have 3 gentlemen who have, through various ways, risen to the top when it comes to this particular elections. You have 3 very, very, very different gentlemen. We are going to ask 3 very simple questions. What do you do? how do you do what you do, and what you stand for. That is the essence of brand differentiation. These three people are very different from each other, but what they do is very similar. They're all politicians. So what you do cannot differentiate you. You are an information security specialist. There are hundreds of information security specialists. That alone, the category that you belong to, that alone cannot differentiate you, cannot build your brand, unless you come up with something absolutely stunningly new. Every bank does the same thing. Every car does the same thing. Every politician essentially does the same thing. The difference, and therefore how they are perceived by others, starts becoming different when you go to the next level, which is how do you do what you do. Let me give you a couple of examples which is outside the personal brands. Laptops or computers, desktops, the ultimate commodity market, right? 5 people in Taiwan make all the laptops, and even the components of them come from the same. It comes from Intel, the processors used to come from Intel, the operating system comes from Microsoft, everything is the same. Yet, one player comes in, which was Dell at that time, and said, the way I will do this, my supply chain is going to be different. I'm going to sell directly to the customer. There was no difference in the laptop. There was no difference in what they did. It was the same as HP or IBM at that time. But the supply chain difference, how do you do what you do, changed the game for Dell for quite a few years. And it was very difficult for others to match it because they had a legacy system to handle. Overnight they could not change. They could not change themselves. Similarly, if you look at the Indian IT service industry, they were providing the same services as IBM or Accenture or CSC or anyone else. But what they did differently was the way they provided, using the global delivery model, doing it offshore out of India. And it took a long time before the IBMs and Accentures of the world could adapt their own models to be the same as that of Indian service provider models. So the differentiation starts happening from how you do what you do. Now if you look at these three characters, Kejriwal out here, his modus operandi, he is a guerrilla fighter. He is a gorilla, absolute urban gorilla. He knows he does not have the resources, the cash, the cadre, the people, the party-based organizational structure of the large political parties. So he has no choice but to be a gorilla. On the other hand, Mr. Modi out there, he projects himself as, I follow the management principles, I implement large-scale complex projects. That's the way I do stuff. Rahul Gandhi out there is, and again, I don't want to argue this out here, this is my personal interpretation. Noble intentions, but on and off implementation. And this is how the perception of you and me starts differentiating these three people. However, it is possible, just like Dell's model got replicated, just like the TCS-Infosys Wipro model got replicated, it is possible that the way you do things can get replicated by others, and then everything is the same once again. What is extremely difficult to replicate, what is extremely difficult to copy is the third level, which is what you stand for. Who are you? What is your soul? How do you behave? And again, if you look at this example, what does Kejriwal's Aam Aadmi Party stands for? It is about an Aam Aadmi, the common man of India, absolutely fed up of corruption and deciding to do something about it. That's what he stands for. He has his takers, he has his haters. That's fine. Not everyone is going to agree with what you stand for. But you need to have clarity on what you stand for. You look at Mr. Modi, says, I am a seasoned politician. I have delivered elsewhere and I can deliver development. Look at Mr. Gandhi. and says what he stands for. Because remember, it is not what he says. It is not about saying, hey, I am a great funny man. It is about the quality of the joke that you crack and what others say based on the joke you crack. And the perception is, hey, but he's there because he's from a dynasty and he's pretty confused. He says, I want to change the establishment, but he's the establishment. Let's skip from the political to the sports. Again, I don't want an argument on whether Sachin is the greatest or not. But if you look at Sachin, Lara, and Dravid, three great batsmen. I have not picked up the bowlers because I wanted to compare apples with apples. But three great batsmen, three of all-time great batsmen. Now they're all batsmen, but they're different. Sachin and Dravid and Lara are extremely different from each other. And the difference comes from their style. The difference comes from what they finally ended up standing for in the eyes of their fans. Mr. Arnab, the nation wants to know what is the difference between these three people. How many of you can recognize the third picture, the lady on the right? Yes. You don't look so old. Salma Sultan was the news announcer when there was only Doordarshan who announced the death of Indira Gandhi on TV. She's from the Doordarshan days. So she's the earliest. Then Pranay Roy came and challenged the status quo. Pranay Roy taught my generation that there can be a different way of presenting news and analysis and doing election analysis on TV, especially the '89 elections. And then on the right, of course, is Arnab Goswami of Times Now, the current #1, the ruler of the TV waves. Again, what do? They're all news anchors. But their styles are very different, what they stand for are very different, and therefore how we the people perceive them, therefore what their brand is extremely different. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but it is their style and it is how they do what they do, because they do the same thing. And what they stand for, that creates the perception that is unique to them and therefore creates their own brand. Now, how does this matter to you? How does this matter to the CISO? Because when you say, yes, I want to create my own brand, the first thing you need to do is to have clarity in your own mind about yourself regarding these three questions. What do I do? You have to define your game. Saying I'm a CISO is maybe not enough. I'm not the right guy to say, what should be the answer for you to that question. But I know this, you have to peel the onion. You have to define the space that you're going to play in. Are you going to be a cyber security expert? Are you going to be an enterprise security expert? You have to define the game so that you do have focus out there. Second question, how do you do what you do? You have to discover your style. You may not be aware of it, but in your daily interactions with your colleagues, with your bosses, with your subordinates, you are being judged. They are forming an opinion of you, not just on the work you do, not just on your technical knowledge, but much more importantly, on the way you deal with them. It happens. It happens without you realizing it. It happens without your colleagues realizing it. But the basis, the fundamental basis of the perception is how do you deal with them? Are you open? Are you closed? Are you aggressive? Are you passive? Are you enthusiastic? Or are you okay? Are you boring? Are you interesting? Do you come out and help, or do you have to be seeked out? Are you proactive? Are you reactive? So how you do what you do is extremely important, and you have to figure out and recognize your style. It is not, again, about one style being better than the other. But you have to have clarity on your style. And, we are at, all of us, except the lady with the makeup, is at an age where it's very difficult to change your style. You cannot change your style. What is important is you recognize your style and root yourself into that. Turn that into your strength. The third important thing is what you stand for. I know this entire information security gig is full of technology, is full of RG4, SE, etc., etc. But you need to take positions. And let me give you a very simple example. My company we make movies. We are in the IP business. And it's very computing intensive. We have about 150 servers, 100 terabytes of storage, and it's very compute intensive. Everything is done on the computers. And my security guy many years ago told me, you know what, we need to ban mobile phones. People coming into office cannot carry their mobile phones. They have to put their mobile phones at the door. And I said, why? I said, because every single mobile phone is now coming with a camera. All they have to do is to point the mobile phone on their computer screen, and they can record the sequence, and they can just go home and put it on YouTube. We don't have any security left. How many of you believe that it's a valid security concern? It is. I agree it's a valid security concern. Now, I'm not a techie, but I'm the CEO of that company. And I said, I refuse to have an organization in which I'm going to tell my employees on whose word I depend to make a movie, to say that you have to leave your mobile phones outside. I don't trust you. So I refuse to have such an organization. So you have to take positions. All I did was, since then everyone gets called and said, look, this is a situation. We don't want you. We know that your phone is part of your life today. Your mom will call you, your father will call you, your girlfriend, your wife, whatever. Your brother, your sister, your friends will call you. It's part of your life. I know you have a camera on that phone, but that doesn't mean that you leave it outside. We trust you. We hope you reciprocate the trust. Keep the forensics. We get the forensics. We have cameras out there that in case something happens, we have the forensics. But you have to take a position. And you as a CISO, you may not agree with the position I have taken, but on every security issue, you will realize that there are different positions, and you will need to take a position over a period of time so that there is a clarity of thought as perceived by the others. Others know exactly this is what the position you are taking. We talked about the brand strength being a function of awareness and respect. But the one thing that we really didn't mention in this slide is, on this graph, is whose awareness and whose respect. You may not want to talk to the whole world. You may want only to talk to your peers, or you may want to talk to anyone who has a computing device, which makes it the whole world. So you have to decide whom are you talking to. And sometimes the answer is very counterintuitive. Take Intel. In the 80s, when Intel began, 81 is the year when the IBM PC first came, right? By 83, the Intel-Microsoft monopoly took shape. And through the 80s, right down to the middle 90s, mid-90s, 94 is when Mosaic came, Netscape, right? So all the way till 94 was a Wintel monopoly. So how many customers did Intel have? Any guesses? Whom did Intel sell its processors to? sold it to the PC makers. How many PC makers were there? 7 of them. Right? Even Lenovo and those companies didn't exist. There were 5, 6, 7 PC makers who controlled the organized PC market. And for many years, Intel's logic was, I just have to sell to 5 companies. That's it. And they focused, it was a classical B2B selling. They focused on selling to those 5 companies. AMD was born by then, and someone inside Intel had a moment of genius, absolute genius. And they realized that if it is only these 5 people, then our defense is going to be extremely weak. All it requires is for a competitor to convince 2 out of those 5 people to shift, to come up, because it is entirely possible that a competitor is going to come up with a better chip. You have to be prepared for that. And if it does happen, then all that company, like let's say AMD, has to do is to convince 2 out of those 5 people, and boom, 40% of your business gone. And that's when Intel realized that it may be a B2B sales organization, but from a brand point of view, it has to be a B2C brand. And that is where the Intel Insight thing came. They spent millions, hundreds of millions. They gave money to the hardware makers to create Intel Insight ads. They used to pay the Dells and the IBMs and the HPs of the world and the Compacts of the world to put the Intel Insight logo in their ads, and they used to pay for their ads. Why? So that people like you and me, or at that time, my mom or my dad, say, hey, does it have Intel? No, it doesn't have Intel. It has an AMD chip. It is 2.5 times faster. I've never heard of AMD. I don't want. I want Intel. My dad had no clue where Intel was. My dad had no clue how Intel was better. He knew one thing: it had to have Intel Insight. Otherwise, that computer is lousy. It is counterintuitive. If you have only 5 customers, you should be focusing only on those 5 customers. How does it matter about the others? But if you look at the biggest and the most famous B2B companies in the world, and let's list them: Intel, Cisco. Cisco is a B2B company, right? For a few years it had some consumer products, and it has shut it down all over again. Cisco is known for its routers, right? I worked in Infosys, 150,000 employees. I don't think more than 5 employees had seen a router in their lives. But they all knew Cisco, brilliant company. GE has a consumer division. It makes bulbs and probably ovens even now. But it has been keeping it alive only for sentimental and emotional reasons. How can GE close down the bulb division? Thomas Edison started GE. He's the father of the modern light bulb. How can I close it down? But if you remove the electric bulb part of GE, which is less than 1% of GE, GE makes industrial plastics. It makes jet engines. It makes healthcare machines, MRI and those machines. They're all B2B products. But GE is a name that is known by everyone, even in this country. So all the big B2B brands, they want to be known as a brand by their end consumers, just like you want to be known as a great brand, great security guy, information security guy, let's say by your peers. But it may make sense, and you have to ask yourself that, does it make sense only to go and talk and impress my peers? only that group of CISOs? Or do I go out and build a brand outside that small group? And it is possible, and we'll discuss a few ways in which how it is possible. So let's start small. Let's start very small in building a brand outside the information security network. Let's start with your organization. Your organization can have 50 people, it can have 5,000 people, 50,000 people, 500,000 people, doesn't matter. Bikash mentioned at the beginning, the CISO's job comes into question, or his existence or her existence comes into question only when something goes wrong. It's like a battery. As long as the battery is running, no one thinks about the battery. Only when the car or the torch or something, the battery stops. That's when you realize, oh my God, what happened to the battery? Now look at your organization. How do you take your brand or your department's brand or your personal brand outside your department? What I've done is I've just listed a few questions that may be the wrong questions, maybe stupid questions, but what they are here for is to help you think as a springboard for asking yourself more questions. Do you have an internship program in your department? Do you go around the organization and offer a 3-month internship in your department? See, because remember, you do great work, you do deep techie stuff. That is something that others are envious of actually when you say, hey, because one of the biggest scripts of people in this country is my work is boring. I'm yet to meet more than 2% of the people who say, hey, my work is great. I love my work. I find it so interesting. Everyone says, my work is boring. You can offer them something very interesting. Come spend 2-3 months out here, especially and it may not be true for all other organizations, but you have a 20%, 25% bench, 30% bench in IT companies. People are sitting out there. Can you offer them an internship, 2-month, 3-month internship? Come spend time out here and see what you can do. And take them through it. Once they're there with you for 3 months, they're a captive audience. You can impress the hell out of them. Do you have elective courses? MIT, Harvard, all the institutes are putting their courses online. Have you created the equivalent? That's why they're in inverted commas. They don't have to be a 3-credit course. But do you have interesting elective courses on the training network, not because the company asked you to create it, but because you feel that, hey, we are doing something interesting out here. Let me do a small course out here, put it on the online network for the organization, and just go ahead and market it and ask people to take it. Hey, this is interesting, try it out. Do you have 10 challenges? Do you put challenges? It's like the X challenge. You're aware of the X challenge, right? How do you send a manned, commercial space traffic? How do you create a driverless vehicle that is commercially viable? These are the big challenges that guys like Google are working on as an organization, long term. But has your department, and you had the department, have you listed out, I have limited resources, but these are the 10 challenges, 5 challenges, 20 challenges, pick your number. In my area of work, in our area of work, either pertaining to the world at large or to the organization in particular, take your pick. You can be very specific, this is a challenge specific to our company, or you can say this is a challenge which is for the greater good of mankind. But list down the challenges, put the challenge out in front of the others in the organization, and see, put a small prize. It need not be a big prize. It can be simple recognition. Try it out. Maybe it will fail. But have you done that? And there are 5, 7, 10, 20 other things like this that you can think of. Try it out and see what happens. In your organization, what will start happening is that the radius of communication for your department and for you will change. Right now, the radius of communication is into the management as a quarterly report, with your partners for standard compliance and testing, and within the department for day-to-day file. You need to change that. Change the radius of communication to the rest of the organization, make it interesting, and see how the perception that they have of you and your department changes. And if the first 5 things you tried, didn't work, try 5 other things. Just because the first 5 things you tried, the first 5 ideas failed, doesn't mean the next 5 will also. Ideas, by their very nature, when you're doing something new, when you're getting out of your comfort zone, the first thing you need to do is to be prepared for failure. You're going to fail. That's the one guarantee you have. But that can't stop you. If that stops you, that's called infant mortality and finish. But if you try and try and try again, ideas will start working and you'll see the effect. Now let's go beyond that. Let's go beyond your organization. Let's go beyond the CISO platform. Once again, I am assuming that I don't have to tell you that you guys, you guys should be speaking at conferences and writing papers for the CISO platform. That's a given. Many of you are already doing that. So, that's a given. I'm saying beyond the CISO platform, again, these are springboard for new ideas in your mind. The questions out here may be stupid by themselves, but I want you to start thinking. You are in the security business, information security business. Cyber crimes just don't have enough cops who are in a position to crack those crimes. The cops have to go out. You work with the cops. How many? More. Already people are working. That's great. I think that's, it may be a niche thing, working with the cops, working with the army, but these are willing, captive, target audiences for you to go and say, I volunteer. They will probably make you sign. Do they make you sign huge sheets of papers? Yes? Right. They will make you do that, but I think it's worth it. Other end of the spectrum, how many of you have gone and talked at your kids' school? Few here, few there. Excellent idea. And not only at your kids' school, at other schools as well, because it's easier for you to go to your kids' school, but you must go to your kids' school. Not only because, hey, the kid will say, hey, my dad does such a cool thing, but the kids need to know about information security. The school is going to welcome it. It's an opportunity for you to be of help, to transfer the essence of your learning that you have put so many years into, to help the next generation, to shape them at an early age so that you can guide their behavior. It's a great thing. You must go and talk to your kids, talk to schools. How many of you are writing regularly or publishing regularly or regularly, right? Great. I think that's almost 25% of the crowd. It's a no-brainer. You have to do it. And the great thing is, today, you can have your own TV channel. When I say writing and publishing, I mean publishing in every single media. Many people feel that they do not have the capacity to write. There's a block. I'm not a writer. I have all the thoughts, I have all the knowledge, I have all the information, but I don't know how to write. Put a pen and paper and I freeze. Or, in front of the keyboard, I freeze. Most people, most human beings are far more comfortable speaking than writing. You don't have to write down your thoughts. Today, you have a camcorder, your home video camera is as powerful as a professional camera 5 years ago. Just put the camera and speak to the camera. Don't even worry about editing it. Don't even worry about the pauses and the ahs and the oohs that come. Let your kids edit it for you. They will do it. They will do a great job of editing. You're not aware of it, but they will do it. Or, if you don't want to do video, just take a tape recorder, old-fashioned dictaphone, and just speak it out there. You don't have to write, but you must record your thoughts. Because first of all, you need to have thoughts. You need to have thoughts beyond your day-to-day work. And once you have those thoughts, you need to record them. And once you record them, you need to publish them after, polishing them a bit. Most of you who write would be writing for, tech stuff. Whether it's CISO platform or similar tech publications. Am I right? Yes? The question here is, have you thought about writing for Femina? I'm not joking. Have you thought about writing for, you're aware of Jam? It's called Just Another Magazine. It's a college students magazine in Bombay and rest of the country. Personal finance publications, Outlook Money. And the reason I'm bringing this up is the same as Intel Inside. That in your mind, it may be that, information security is extremely complex. It has to do with organizations. But today, with consumerization of technology, I believe there is a consumerization of the concept of security. Your personal bank account can be hacked. You have kids who forget everything else, which is the single biggest 101 of security that most people are grappling with. Password management. It may be, kindergarten stuff for you. You laugh at it. But for millions of people out there, it is not kindergarten stuff. Because they're they don't have any concept of internet security or information security, and they're grappling with it. Can you help them out? And that added advantage, obviously, of taking again your radius of communication, the radius of your brand, beyond the techie world, beyond just your office, beyond just your peers in the security business. You need to create content and you need to have conversations. That is what branding and marketing in the new world is about. Content and conversations. A lot of content. It is, you just have to keep creating content. And you don't have to create all the content yourself. You can have partners. For example, it is not that every time you face the camera and speak. You can get 4 of your friends and 5 of you can sit in front of a camera and have a panel discussion. You can run your own TV channel today, and it is not that no one is going to see it. You've got channels out there run by people on YouTube that have got thousands and thousands of regular subscribers. How many of you have you seen something that's spoof from the viral fever of Arnab Goswami, Arvind Kejriwal, Meenakshi Lekhi, etc.? No? It has had you have a few people, 2.5 million views. 2.5 million views. Brilliantly done. Just go and Google it, the viral fever, or search on YouTube. Independent publishing has got an audience. Good stuff finds its way. People just distribute it themselves. So if you have got interesting stuff, if you have got good stuff, and that is the necessity, let me modify that. For every 10 things that you publish, there will be one really interesting stuff. And that will get a great audience. Because you have published something interesting, those 10,000 people will come and see even stuff that is not so interesting from you. Right? where is the time? All this is great. Where is the time? And my submission to you is that this is your real job. Your job is not to attend meetings. What will you leave behind? Are you going to leave minutes of the meetings that you attended? Is that what your legacy is going to be? Forget to the world at large, to your kids. Or do you want your kids later, 10 years, 20 years later, say, go back to YouTube and say, hey, that's my dad, or that's my mom. This is your real job, because yes, there are fires every day. Yes, you have meetings. Yes, you do not know how the day finished, and if you have to say, what did I accomplish today? I don't know. So, what did you accomplish today? And this is something I've been doing for years. What you are driven by your calendar. Do a WP. Just block your calendar for 3 hours every day. I suggest between 2 and 5 enough. Just block your calendar. Because others are going to invite you for a meeting. They have no clue. They see busy. They have no clue why busy, right? So the meeting will get shifted. The world is not going to end. Trust me, the world is not going to end. You need a couple of hours, if not 3, at least 2 hours every day to sit back, reflect, collect your thoughts, think about what you are doing, even, not life-changing stuff, not world-changing stuff, but even the mundane stuff that you're doing in your organization, but 50% of it at least is mundane, if not more. But there also you need to spend time. How much time how much thought do you give? Because if you do not give thought, if you just wing it, it is not going to be world class. You are world class. You have the potential, each one of you, to be world class. All of you are world class. But when you take an inventory of the output that you have produced at the end of the year, how many things can you point to and say, I produced 5 world-class stuff, or 3 world-class stuff, and 10 best in India? You have to take time. You need to, I think it was Stephen Covey in the 7 Habits who had said that beautiful thing, that you have to differentiate and separate between the urgent and the important. All of us are buried under the urgent stuff. The world is falling around everyone, and what with your Blackberries and iPhones and Samsung Galaxies, all these smart stuff, you are connected all the time. 9:30 in the night you get an email and you think that your life's mission is to respond to that email, otherwise the company is going to collapse. But you do not have the time to collect your thoughts and figure out what you actually are doing, what your actual expertise is, to get 2 original thoughts in a month. Here's another secret. I call it the Maggie 2-minute noodle fun run. You don't need to write a 2,000-word document. Think in 2-minute slices. Think in the equivalent of 2 minutes on video is 200 words. Think in 200 words. You don't want 2,000 or 10 pages or whatever. Jot down your thoughts, or think, put them together, shape them, polish them a bit. 200 words. Even if you manage 200 words a week, forget 200 words a day. It adds up. Before you know it, you have, lot of these things, Lego pieces, which you start putting together. Once you have these Lego pieces and you start putting them together, things start taking shape. The missing pieces you'll put in immediately and create something. Don't wait for the time to be available to you to build the entire Taj Mahal at one go. You have to build it in pieces. But you have to take time out, focus on what your core expertise is, discover your style, use that style, remember what you are standing for, take positions, coming from that side, start putting these Lego pieces of thoughts every time you get them. And that's how you build an inventory for creating content and conversations. We talked about a lot of famous people. We talked about Dravid and Tendulkar and Lara and Modi and Rahul Gandhi, all these guys. And you'll say, hey, they had God-given talent. Sachin is Sachin, once a generation. And Rahul Gandhi was born in the Gandhi family, and Arnab and Pranay Roy are in the business of TV. So obviously, they're seen by everyone and they became a brand, etc., etc. Who am I? Who are we? We are normal human beings. We don't get to go on TV. How do we build a brand? How many of you recognize him? The ladies? Yes. He was a cook. For heaven's sake, a cook. I mean, he can call himself a chef, but a cook. One of the most famous people in India. If he can build a brand for himself, and he did it step by step, just look at what all he has. He has a website. Just go and check out his website. It's an extremely rich website. And it's not only about him, he gets others also to come and contribute. He has got obviously a Facebook page, he has got Twitter, he has got a blog, he has got a YouTube channel, the works. And he has them all beautifully linked together. You know the law of the network, right? The power of the network expands, is proportional to the square of the nodes. Right? A three computer network is 9 times faster than a single computer. When you network your blog, your Facebook, your LinkedIn, and you network them effectively, it is proportional, the power becomes proportional to the square. And here is a cook who can teach us a lot. So if he can do it, each one of us can. It is hard work. It is hard work. It is hard work because it forces us to ask questions, difficult questions. It forces us to introspect. It forces us, what is my position? It forces us to peel the onion. It is hard work because we do not have the time for all this. It is hard work because we may have thoughts, but to give shape to our thoughts is difficult. And to create something from nothing is difficult. And it is hard work because to do it day in and day out, week in and week out, is tiring. It is hard work because the first few things that we'll produce will not get a very enthusiastic response. But we have to say, no, doesn't matter, I won't give up. Therefore, it's hard work. But if you don't do it, the alternative is to be just another person. Thank you.